6 a.m. You hear something loud in the corridor. The whole room wakes up and knows that it's time to get down to business. Half asleep, you open your locker, put on your uniform, and make your bed. Blinded by the light, you head towards the dining room to have breakfast so that you have enough energy for the day. As soon as you get back from eating, you grab the broom and start cleaning your assigned cleaning area, as you do every day. Of course, you joke around with your roommates while the drill instructors are still out of sight. 7:30. Line up at the pitch. Attendance check. As usual, one group is late and gets in trouble for it. The guy next to you has forgotten to clean his boots, and you have to pull yourself together not to laugh out loud as he gets a dressing down. After that, there's no time for jokes. Quickly to your room, change into your sports kit, and head outside again for a leisurely 8 miles. 10 a.m. Pack your shooting equipment and head for the shooting range. As always, you shoot well, but one of your roommates is unfortunately less lucky. After you finish shooting the exercises, you quickly return to your accommodation, lock up your weapon, and head off for lunch. There's no dawdling in the military, so you quickly get a full plate and shovel what you can. 1 p.m. Combat duty. Your group quickly assembles for the initial march. Halfway through, the first comrade is already panting like a steam engine and threatens to break down. Since this is out of the question, you quickly take some of his luggage off him. On the one hand, of course, this is for his benefit, but on the other hand, nobody wants to carry a bag of fat on a stretcher. Once you've arrived in the forest and are completely out of breath, you issue your orders. Some enemy actors have entrenched themselves in the forest, and your task is to spy them out and fight them. You fight your way silently through the terrain and get closer and closer to the enemy actors. You quickly take cover behind a bush and your comrade lies down next to you. Unfortunately for him, he didn't have a good look and lies down on an anthill. You skillfully fight off the enemy and march back to the barracks, but of course that would be too easy. So your drill instructor decides to take the shortcut through the river without further ado. Completely exhausted and knocked out, you arrive at the barracks in the evening and hope that the day is coming to an end. You clean your equipment and think you've done it for the day, but then the door opens. The drill instructor appears with a notepad in his hand and everyone knows what's next. Room locker inspection. Because in the rush at lunchtime you forgot to put your uniform away properly. Before you can say anything, there's a bang and the entire contents of the locker are strewn across the floor of the room. You spend the rest of the evening cleaning, folding, and putting everything away in the locker. Not 5 minutes after you've done this, you fall into bed and are ready for what the next day has to offer. With the United States making headline after headline after their new conscription bill, as well as Germany on the verge to reintroduce a mandatory military service for every man over the age of 18, Twitter and other social media seem flooded with people who absolutely despise this idea. But why is that? How bad is it really? And what does this tell us about our society? I live in a country where compulsory military service is mandatory. I've already been through it, and I'm still in the reserves. Therefore, I can offer you more than just facts from some random surveys. Now, let's be real with ourselves. Most people nowadays grow up in a pretty safe environment. You rarely need to leave your comfort zone. Food is available whenever you crave it, and giving a presentation in front of your class is considered challenging. Which, of course, is not a bad thing in itself. However, having these things missing has much more consequences than you might think. Over time, we, as a society, lose what values that helped shape the world we live in today. Discipline is lacking. Everyone rather does what he feels like doing. Adaptability seems to vanish as acting in situations you're not familiar or comfortable with isn't required most of the time. Taking responsibility fades to the background, and meeting new people is hard as everyone is focused on themselves. But let's be clear. The real world doesn't hand out participation trophies. It demands discipline, responsibility, the ability to get the job done, even when it's hard. military service, love it or hate it, teaches these qualities. It takes young people, some fresh out of school, and throws them into situations where laziness or excuses simply won't cut it. You learn to follow orders. You learn to work as a team. You learn that actions have consequences, sometimes very real ones. These aren't just military values, they're life skills. Arriving there and finding yourself in a room with 10 or more other individuals. Rich kids, poor kids, kids who never saw a forest from the inside, as well as kids who never went outside their small town. But that's the thing, it doesn't matter. Everyone wears the same uniform, does the same drills, and most importantly, everyone relies on one another in order to succeed. This shared experience can break down barriers and foster a sense of national unity that transcends our differences. Because when you're facing a challenge together, the things that divide you suddenly seem a lot less important. And you don't want the drill sergeant to make your life even more hell. Simple things like folding your clothes a specific way, organize your locker exactly the way it's supposed to be, packing your backpack the way you're supposed to, seems like it only serves the purpose of annoying you. But these simple things are important in building discipline in everything you do. Then of course you have the physical side of it. Before our service, almost all of us thought that we knew our limits. In reality, however, almost no one does. This becomes especially visible during the many marches and combat services you need to do. Marching through snow, heat, mountains and rivers together as a team, while navigating on a map. And without your smartphone really builds mental and physical toughness, where you're required to go to your limits and even beyond, because if you can't do it, your group will suffer. Don't just take my word for it. Look at South Korea. They've faced existential threats since their inception. And guess what? Mandatory service is a cornerstone of their society. And it's no coincidence that they've also become an economic powerhouse. It's not just them. Finland, Austria, Singapore, and Switzerland, all these countries have mandatory service programs, and they consistently rank among the happiest and most prosperous in the world. Now, correlation doesn't equal causation, but it's hard to ignore the pattern. Countries that ask their citizens to serve tend to be countries that thrive, but also on a personal level, as I already said, you gain many traits and abilities through your time in the army. All of that seemingly useless clothing folding you did, making your bed, packing and building stuff, translates perfectly into your life after you moved out of your mum's house. You're not scared to face new challenges, either in private or in your job. As you know, you gain the ability to adapt quickly to change and welcome unpleasant situations. You learned what it means to lead people in a team and what makes a good leader during your time in the army, a trait which is highly sought after nowadays. You easily understand commands or tasks which are given to you and also quickly plan it out in your head. You're much more efficient and much easier to talk to, as you don't see it as your job to discuss everything with everyone. You do what you have to do. Simple as that. So, here's the takeaway: mandatory service, when implemented thoughtfully and ethically, has the potential to transform individuals, strengthen the nations, and build a more just and equitable world. This isn't a call for blind militarization. It's a call for a renewed sense of civic duty, a recognition that we all have a role to play in making the world a better place. See you soon.